Well, earlier today we showed you how to construct raised bed gardens, and really those same concepts and principles apply here in our ground bed. All we're doing is just tilling up the soil and then mounding it, and then we'll come across and level it out a little bit where the beds are going to be about 10-12 inches high. Now, we tried this last year and we really had a lot of success in it because we have this heavy clay soil here in Stillwater. And we found that early in the spring when we get all the rains that we can let the water drain, plus we can cover it up with the plastic that I've got here, and that makes it really warm up a little bit better too. And again, this is just a commercial plastic that's used for growing commercial vegetables, but again, you can use any kind of plastic that you can purchase at garden centers or the black weed barrier that we showed you earlier on. We've just laid that down over the mounds. Again, you can see the width on them varies a little bit, but about 12 inches wide, a little bit wider at the peak surface. And then the excess we just cover with the soil to hold it down. Now, in addition to good drainage here, we're also going to be able to warm the soil temperature up like we told you, but most importantly, we're going to keep the weeds out, and that's a big plus for us. Now, with our heavy soil, you can imagine that we're creating a good standing area here for water. So in between, we shred up some of our leaves, some of our straw, any kind of compost, and we put that down 4 to 6 inches thick. That way it's real easy for us to work in between and we don't get quite as muddy. Well, now it's really time for us to start thinking about planting those crops. Even though we're just a few days off at our freeze date here in Stillwater, we're still going to risk it and try to put in some of our vegetables. Now, this year in Oklahoma Gardening, we're going to emphasize heirloom vegetable varieties. So we've got a lot of different things in store for you, and if you remember, heirloom varieties are varieties that were really introduced prior to the 1940s. And those varieties are some of our earliest introductions, and usually they're non-hybrid types. So we'll keep you informed on how we plant those and how they turn out in productions along the growing season. But the first one we're putting in here is just one of our tomato varieties. Again, it's one of the early ones. We've got our beds prepared and we've grown these in the peat pellets, and if you'll notice, I peeled off that excess around the top because it will act as a wick if we don't get rid of that. We loosen them up just a little bit at the bottom so the roots will come out, and then we just stick that right in the planting hole. And we pack it down real nicely. We've got a little bit of a mound here too that will hold water. And again, you want to make sure all of that peat pellet is covered up because again, it will act as a wick and really dry it out. So we need to make sure that we water that in with a starter fertilizer. We've just got some peaters. We'll water that in. Now again, there's still a risk of possible freeze and cold weather. So we're going to watch the news, and we've got our tomato cage that we can lay down on the side to cover these up or protect them individually. Either way, we're going to work out nicely. So again, watch your weather. But notice that we're planting these right in the center of the bed, and that will come along probably anywhere from 4 feet apart, depending on the variety. And then remember, last year we mounded them up and then grew the tomatoes with the cages right on top of the mound. Now the last one that I want to show you is a heirloom variety of bush bean that we're also growing in the same mounds. What I've done, I've soaked some of the bean seed overnight to kind of get a head start, and instead of planting these in the center, we're planting a row on each edge just like you normally would, only on the raised mound, to get that same type of production. And again, the swelling just kind of gives us a head start, and we're just barely poking those through. And our soil here is very fertile, so we'll only be side dressing throughout the growing season. Well, we want you to stick around the next few weeks because we've got a lot of planting to do, but that's all the time we've got today. So be sure and come back and join us next weekend here on Oklahoma Gardening.